I have the most interesting guest today in our studio here in Washington, D.C., Reverend Walter Hoye. Thank you, all the way up from California, one of the most amazing activists in the country.
Amen.
And Reverend Brian, and I don't know his last name, even though I probably should.
At my table.
I know, darling, but I get people's last names mixed up.
Walker.
Walker? You gonna walk me where?
Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker. You know what? There actually was a story in today's paper about how liquor sales have exceeded wine and beer combined. We have a society that is just totally addicted to alcohol. And one of the biggest challenges with the addiction to alcohol and the opiates and other things that are in the headlines is that we know there's something at root. There's something going on there. Well, I think that you may have tapped into a little bit of what's going on based on the new ministry that you have launched for the nation's pastors, those that have not reconciled themselves with abortion. I think that most don't understand how deep abortion is hurting us as a society. So I welcome you to the show today, and I want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit of your background, and then let our audience know what you exposed to us here in Washington today about this new ministry concept of where people can come and get healed from their past mistakes.
My goodness, Star, first, thank you for letting us be a part of this program. And to everybody out there, we're Walter and Lori Hoye. My wife is actually the cameraman right now, so I want to give a shout out to my lovely wife. This is Brian Walker next to me. He's a part of Everlasting Life Ministries and Rich in Mercy. It's an abortion recovery program. And they were a part of, they as in Brian and Denise Walker. I guess she's your camera.
Yes. How you doing, honey?
Hi, sweetie.
Keep the focus.
I'm focused on it.
You're the one that distracted her attention by giving her a shout out on national TV. Or should we say international?
Time is money, right? Time is money.
That was Zina. That's my friend, Zina. Coming in.
Hey, Zina.
It took me forever to know Zina's last name. I'd known her 10 years before I finally said, by the way, what is your last name?
It's just Zina.
It was always Zina. I didn't have problems with Zina.
Zina was working. Oh, okay. Well, Lori and I just recently finished a conference that was dedicated to touching the lives of husband and wife, black pastors, husbands and wives, and we dealt with the issue of abortion. And we dealt with it from a very personal, intimate, upfront, very close level, and we got into some very, very, very personal areas. The conference was wildly successful. As a matter of fact, the very next Sunday, very following Sunday, a pastor got up in his pulpit and said, from now on, I am a pro-life pastor, and we're going to be a pro-life church. And Brian and Denise Walker, Everlasting Life Ministries, were a big part of that.
Big part because you actually go deeper into what's happened inside of the pastors and their wives. You were telling me stories where some haven't even reconciled it with themselves, nor have they even told their spouses. Give us a little glimpse into your ministry, and then maybe even some successes.
I'll give you a little glimpse with a little story. We met this pastor. I won't give his name, but he's in a very prominent church in Twin Cities. And I met him about 4 years ago, just going to a community meeting, nothing to do with pro-life stuff. And we exchanged cards. He looked at the card, he said, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And until I took him to lunch for an hour, which turned into a 4-hour lunch, I didn't know how deep and how far back this stuff went. And so he met with us, Denise and I, and we prayed with him. He said, I just really wanted to know about you. He said, how did you get saved? What's your walk now? And that's the difference of black pastors. It's just not a hand out the business card and what your program, what your flow chart looks like, or how many you're running.
Exactly.
They always want to know how many you're running. And he didn't want to know him. He says, I want to know you. He says, I'm not in a hurry. He says, let's take some time. And by the Holy Ghost, it didn't take as much time as he said it would take. But within, a couple of months, a couple of weeks, he had us at his church. They gave our testimony, and he got up and he said, the shepherd can't do. He said, I can't expect the sheep to do what the shepherd won't do. And he got up and confessed to his whole abortion with his first wife.
My goodness.
And so the whole place, he sat down, and the pastor's seat, and how we go, the pastor's seat's up front. Right. Hung his head and cried like a baby. Yeah. His wife came over and put her hand over his shoulder. Then the elder said, "Come on, you know how they are.
Right.
Come up here and lay hands
Let's
on this
get
man."
Brother Hill.
So that speaks to the brokenness and the deepness of it.
That's right.
He's been carrying that for decades.
Right.
He's known in the community. He got into politics, very well known.
Right.
But under the veneer
That's right.
was a veil of
Deep
darkness,
scar.
and we had to dig
Get
down
out
in
of
there
there.
real deep.
Yeah, remember the lyrics of that song where he looked beyond my fault and saw my need. And I think sometimes in the pro-life community, this is what is occurring, that we're talking about it in numbers, we're talking about it in circles, we're talking about it politically, but we forget that we're talking human beings. And with, in particular, abortion and how it's impacted the black community, I mean, we're talking about a very vulnerable community. We going through slavery, going through Jim Crow, going through a civil rights movement where the leader is killed 5 years later. Roe v. Wade is national law. So there is deep impact, and we know the numbers, but when you look at the numbers, now some are estimating 500,000 black babies a year. These are real people that are experiencing, and so there's a real depth. Share with us a little bit, Brian, because what you shared with that pastor was deep and personal to you. Share with us what you and your wife had to reconcile and are now able to get to the place where you not only can say it out loud, but you can help others recover themselves.
Well, first of all, we had to reconcile with God. I was far and adrift from my Christian upbringing. Just kind of kicked Jesus to the curb. We didn't get hit at 18.
Exactly.
You know, we didn't get into college. And, you know more than mom and dad. But Denise was the same thing. And when you don't know the Lord, you do anything. And you put your child on the altar of Molech, and through my own selfishness, unbelief, feared out unbelief, I decided, like, I'm daddy, but I don't want to be a daddy. Like a lot of men, we want to play house. We want our food, we want to have our time in bed, and we have a good job, somebody to come home to, but that's as far as it went with me. And so at that time I decided to put my child on the altar of fear, doubt, and inconvenience. That this is an inconvenience to me. Not realizing that this is a person.
Now, were you married?
No, we were shacking.
But just in a relationship,
It's a Christian choice. We were fornicating,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
But we we were engaged, but the wedding was going to take place about 4 months later. And all I had to do, if I had been in my right mind, I said, let's go down to the county clerk, get that paper, we cut the cake in May. That's all I could do to spare us all that misery. It was just something very simple as that, to protect the shame and that shame grid that we all have.
Right.
I didn't do that. And so as a result, she had had 2 abortions before she met me with a boyfriend. And then we had the abortion, and me reneged on my God-given role. Even though I didn't know him the way he should have been known. I'm supposed to be protector, provider. Don't kill your own. You take care of the house. You take care of your wife. And you take care of your kids to come. And I didn't do all that. And so all that did was drive her into a spiral. And she said, like, how can I respect a man who would put my own flesh and blood to death? So even those times of intimacy, sexual intimacy, she would roll over and this tears would be coming down her eyes, like, who's this dude in the bed with me? He killed my child. And so you build your relationship on a foundation of fornication, poverty too. What I thought would get me out of poverty by having the abortion did not get, my wall did not get any thicker. It got thinner. So God just blew on that. Long story short, we ended up out of, we escaped. I'm a refugee from the Bronx. I got out of the Bronx. That's another story. And we got out Twin Cities, and we got to healing around 2007. By God's grace, she went through a healing ministry. I went through one for men.
Wow.
And the Lord launched us in, but along the way, He had to reconcile me to my child, reconcile me back to God, and also reconcile me back to Denise. Because if the shepherd ain't respected, then the house is in disorder. And the house is junked up, and like you remember out in Walk for Life, I said, "Is there a man in the house?
Is there a man in the house?
Is there a man in the house?" That was the theme the Lord gave me for the Walk for Life. And so He is. It's a process. We know that we're forgiven. But forgiving is not the same as walking toward cleansing and walking toward holiness in your walk. And so that's what God did for us.
Wow, I tell you, the Lord is so alive and so good. You just cannot complete what He does for folks, because it's just a continuum, and He's constantly giving us new ideas and birthing them. So what He seems to have birthed now with you, Reverend Hoye, is to share these stories in an environment of safety with the pastors, where you have folks that look like us that used to participate in abortion, who are now redeemed. You have folks that have outreach services that can talk about their experiences, and your audience are pastors and wives.
Yes.
Walk us through that week of what you're now offering for people in our society, in particular in the Black community, so that they can get to the place that Denise and Brian have gotten.
Well, it was a very specific and a very deliberate program. We first dealt with the reality of abortion itself, the physical reality of abortion.
Showing them what it looks like?
Well, not only that, we actually brought in former Black abortionists who have performed thousands of abortions themselves, and were currently OBGYNs and general practitioners. They were currently doctors today.
Right.
And then we also had with them the leading Black OBGYN in the country, and we talked about the physical reality of abortion, what happens to the woman there on the table. Then it was combined with the fact that we have both husband and wife. It wasn't just the pastor, it wasn't just his wife. We have both husband and wife together sitting there getting this information all at the same time.
Now, did some of the pastors that were there, and when you have this session, did they know each other? Was this like a group session that they don't necessarily know each other?
No, some knew it, some had known each other, some did meet there for the first time.
Okay.
But they were handpicked.
Okay.
They were those that wanted to be free. They were those that actually wanted to do it, but didn't quite know how to do it in the public square.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that it needs to be in a public square, and I think that that's what makes this so unique. You talked about, Brian, the differences in culture when it comes to how church life and how church relate to one another. In the Black community, the pastor's wife is elevated as first lady.
That's right.
This is not a time to preach it from the pulpit if she has not had this healing opportunity. So sometimes it has to be done in an intimate situation like this. In particular, when you're talking about the numbers of Black abortions, that means that every other one is post-aborted, and it would be very difficult for them to minister to these ladies if they themselves aren't healed. So walk me now through where you see this going. What is your vision? What you've been ministering now, and you do the part, Brian, where they actually come in and walk through every experience of getting into the real heart of the sin and then getting it removed from them. Are you seeing greater numbers? Are you seeing more cities? Share with us, and then I'll come back to you, Pastor Hoye, and we'll close it out.
Well, in a lot of ways, our vision for Denise and I is hooked up with Reverend Hoye's vision.
Okay.
Underground Railroad, because the Underground Railroad, it didn't run on one rail, it ran on two.
That's right.
And it also had conductors along the way, people that got on the train to help out, people that got off the train said, I'm going to send you on to the next stop. And so that's how we're running. And so we want to just bring the healing around the country. You know, Black pastors are very relational. They want to know your testimony. Black church is real big on overcome what? We overcome the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony, right?
Word of our testimony.
And
they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony.
Personal testimony.
That's exactly right. That's a revelation.
Personal
That's
testimony.
Right. That's right.
And so that's the kind of Black culture. And we come from more of a preaching. It's not so much a didactic thing, you know, I'm going to bring out my graphs and all this stuff.
Right.
We have that information, but also we have the first ladies, we have the men there, and you know, quite frankly, we cut out the pillow talk.
Yeah.
We do an end run around the pillow talk, but the first lady says, you ain't going to bring up that abortion thing, right? And then you know it's dead in the water.
Right.
Exactly.
So we're wanting to bring the healing to the women and men within our congregation, within our communities, to just end this abortion thing, cut it off at the root, And by hooking up with Dr. Hoye, I'm going to call him. I just gave him a promotion. They started calling him Dr. Hoye.
But I think it should be
Yeah.
because Reverend, you've been working this a long time. In fact, you've been so committed to the movement to end abortion that you went to jail. I mean, you were like holding a little sign. You end up in jail saying, "I just Jesus loves you, baby, and so do I." And now you fast forward to say, "I've got to get to the root of the problem." And it sounds like you are. Tell me 10 years when you start seeing the miracle. What would that look like? We know that the pastors, Brian mentioned the pillow talk. Is that going to change now in their relationship as well? Because, well, come on, and
That's
real
real.
intimate.
Absolutely.
Real.
After
Absolutely.
they're free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, how are you seeing this?
Well, freedom is the right term for it. We're setting the captives free. It's no longer a secret that you can never talk about. You're open, you're honest, and you can be freer with your congregation. We're helping pastors do for their congregations what they want to do.
Wow.
They're shepherds, they want to meet the needs of their congregation. And abortion, the numbers surrounding the Black American community are so large, and it's such an issue that we do need to talk about. We do need to provide healing. We need to provide health. We need to provide a safe environment for folk to come, meet Christ, get healed, get better.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for joining us here on Cure America with Star Parker. And my most exciting guests are helping us bring that cure to America, in particular when it comes to the most needy. You know, I've recently talked much about that little lost sheep. The message of the lost sheep. God went to find that one pastor, that one pastor's wife. So I hope that you will take advantage of the information that's going to be across your screen and get in touch with this powerful ministry and make sure that you get yourself involved. It's only a week, but after the week, you're a whole new creature in Christ. And it would just take your Christianity and your pastor to another level. You know, one of the things that I've noticed about that little lost sheep, I start thinking about the other 99 because I'm in my personal life dealing with patience and waiting. Well, they were sitting there waiting for the Lord, and the Lord showed me, but they weren't getting impatient. It's him talking to me about my impatience. He said, no, actually they were contemplating that. Gosh, if he loves that one that much that he would go look for them, then he loves me too. So if I ever got lost, the Lord will come find me. It's important, that little lost sheep, and that's what we're going to do, is go find them. So I want to thank you both for being here with us, and then the Camp women too, being here, and I hope that your ministry does well. God bless you. We'll look for you again next week on Cure America with Star Parker.
See you then.
Hey, let's get a